Evening, church. Turn our Bibles to Matthew chapter 10, and welcome to Table Talk. Matthew 10 gives us a list of 12 apostles in verses 1 through 4. And I want to point out one tonight that's going to be our lesson, Simon the Canaanite. So let's start in verse 1, reading verses 1 through 4 of Matthew chapter 10. And when he had called unto him the 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out, and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Now the names of the 12 apostles are these: the first, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the publican, James the son of Alphaeus, and Lebbaeus, whose surname was Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, that's our study tonight, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. Now of this Simon, there is no mention of Simon's calling, like we find in Peter, Andrew, James, John, and even Matthew, the tax collector. God apparently didn't think that was important for us to know it. But what we do know is that God has showed us in these texts that he's changed a life and that God can change your life also. That this man allows us to know that we have absolutely no excuse to serve Christ. Looking at Mark 3:18, Mark 3:18 says about this guy that it calls him the Canaanite like it does here in Matthew. But that does not mean that he was from Cana. Rather, this is a word derived from Aramaic, which means to be zealous for the law. Another term for zealotous party or radical fringe group of Jews during the first century. Acts 1 in verse 13 refers to this same Simon. It says this: and when they were come in, they went up to an upper room where abode Peter and James and John and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon Zelotes, and Judas the brother of James. Now, he was not referred to as a zealot, like Simon the Zealot, but the Zelotes. It was capitalized Z, just as Matthew was the tax collector, but not capitalized. He was a member then of this Zelotes party, Simon Zelotes, a member of this party who sanctioned hits and violence, including death squads on Roman officials and Jewish sympathizers. Pretty much a radical man. The very term zelotes means one who literally boils over with passion. There should be a distinction with this word and the Greek word number 2707 in your Strongs, kataphrontes, which is a zealous person. It wasn't saying he was a zealous person, but that he was a zelotes. This term is used in referring to an extreme faction of the Jews, as I referred to, called the Zelotes, or the Zelotes of the law. Not just the zealots of the law, but the Zelotes of the law. Luke 6:15 says, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon called Zelotes, and it's used there again in capitalization as not just a term, but a title. Here it is used in its transliterative form, from Zelotes to a Zelotes. Notice that the A is missing, so it's not a zealot, Z-E-A-L-O-T. It's not a zealot, but a zelotes, so a member of the Zelotes party. Luke also says here that he's called Zelotes, which means to be known for being a zelotes, not known for being zealot, because it have the A in that word, but known for being a zelotes. That's important to note. Like Matthew was the tax collector, and now he is not. He was Levi, now he's Matthew. This was Simon the Zelotes, or called Zelotes, and now he has a different reason for living. So who are these Zelotes? Well, from the beginning of the time of the Maccabees forward, there has existed among the Jews a class of men called the Zelotes. Used to be spelled Z-A-L-O-T-E-S, now Z-E-L-O-T-E-S. They were rigorous in their adherence and defenders of the Mosaic law. Even resorting to violence at times, they looked to the example of Phinehas and their lineage from Numbers 25, who has speared two people together to stay a plague for Moses. And also spoken of by David in Psalm 106 as being a man of faith, or the words used there, accounted unto him for righteousness. So they saw their faith in God was as to be able to do these honor killings and these cleansings. These Zelotes used their holy zeal as a reason for even revenge killings and to bump off anybody that would come against them, including the Romans that were occupying them at the time. As a matter of fact, they had a resurgency. By the time of Jesus' time, Josephus also wrote about them in his Jewish Antiquities. And he states that they were reinvigorated by Judas of Galilee in 6 AD against Herod Archelaus. Now, Simon was a Zelotes. So, what about Simon as a Zelotes? Was he like those guys? Well, that's what we're going to get into just a little bit more. The Zelotes objected to Roman rule. So at the time, remember, Rome was running Jews there at the time of Jesus. So the Zelotes objected to Roman rule and violently sought to eradicate it by generally targeting Romans and Greeks in their own province. They're more famously known as the Sicarii. It comes from a Hebrew word, but the Greek word or modern English word is Sicarii, who raided Romans and even killed Jews that they considered apostate or collaborators or refused to obey the law. So the Sicarii, which means violent men or dagger men, because the Sicarii carried a sicae or a small dagger concealed in their cloaks. At public gatherings, they pulled out these daggers to attack Romans and Jewish sympathizers alike, like guys like Matthew the tax collector. And they blended into the crowd to escape after they did the dirty deed, so they wouldn't have any detection. They were basically hitmen. From the carrying of their sicae daggers or sick daggers in their cloaks, they were the first organized assassin unit that we know of in history called cloak and daggers. Now, the Zelotes then predicated them based on their time frame, the Islamic Hashishin and the Japanese ninja by centuries. These were the original guys, the original hitmen. Now, to get an idea of their actions, Josephus continues to write, also wrote about the Sicarii raiding the nearby Hebrew village of En Gedi, where they massacred 700 women and children besides countless men. These were not men to mess with. They were a unique and a very skilled hit group. Now, back to Simon specifically. Being called the Canaanite or Canaanus, which literally means a zealot force. Not people from Cana, as I said earlier, but a zealot force. One who is identified with the Zelotes. So Simon then was a fanatical nationalist hitman. Could you imagine him and Matthew being the pimping, scheming, Roman sympathetic tax collector, being friends? Yes. When unconditional love becomes your bond, then all bets are off. When God changes your heart by love and you reciprocate that love, and that love is shed abroad in your hearts and blows out on everybody around you, everything is possible and everything gets changed. Just like 2 Corinthians 5 tells us that we were dead, now we are alive, and everything is made new. Zealous for blood and political action, now a follower of Jesus. Make an entirely different hit list. Not to hit people for death, but to hit people with the gospel in a whole different way. A man of action and hate now is a man of action and love. Remember the literal definition. One who boils over with passion. Are you boiling over with passion for Christ? So much so that you can't help but speak of others, speak of Him to other people? Passion for Christ. You see, God changed this man from a radical terrorist to a radical follower of Jesus. Don't you ever think that maybe God could use you too? I mean, really, what is our excuse? I wonder how much we are zealous over other things more than Jesus. How many things that we are truly passionate over and not Christ. They were boiling over with passion for something, but not Jesus. Everybody wants Christians to just stay calm and just relax and chill and it's all going to be okay. But you bring up something that's really passionate about and they go nuts. Listen, in the Christian life and being a true follower of Jesus, passion without action is pointless. Simon evidently did enough passionately for Jesus to be marked as a marked man himself. We learn from historical accounts that he was martyred for Jesus by none other than crucifixion. He was crucified in Nablus, just west of modern-day Tel Aviv. We call ourselves followers of Christ. But are we really? Are we doing more than just learning? Are we doing more than just church attendance, but actually stepping out in obedience with passion for Christ and his gospel? Merriam-Webster defines one who is zealous as one who is eagerly desirous of and for a thing. Eagerly desirous of or for a thing. Are you eagerly desirous or zealous for Jesus? Are you eagerly desirous or zealous as a follower? Desirous of him and his gospel, his church, his word, his assembly? Or are you passionate about other things? Maybe your passions are divided. Maybe it's some Jesus and some other stuff. Maybe a little Jesus and a lot of other things. Maybe it's a lot of Jesus, but this one thing that you're still passionate about. And that's okay. It's justified. Is it so much that you're boil over? Or are you moderate for Jesus and boil over for other things? Where's your heart at? That's the real question, isn't it? Where's your love? Because what you love, you'll talk about. What you love, you'll boil over for that. Look at what God can do with a totally surrendered life. I want to be a Simon. I want to be a Zelotes for Jesus. Are you surrendered? Now, I'm praying that you will be. I hope that you take time and pray right now that God would speak to you clearly about this, that he would help you to surrender. And it's not this progressive rest of your life surrender, but you're just one and done. You're finished. I'm tired of living for myself. I'm tired of living for this world. I want to give it all to Jesus. I don't care what it takes. This world has nothing left for me. It's all for you, Christ. Let me tell you something, folks. Surrender is always worth it. It's renewable daily, yes. But don't fake yourself. Okay, I'll give a little bit more, and then I'll get a little bit better and a little bit better. Folks, we've got to start becoming zealous for Jesus. The Bible says that the zeal of the Lord hath eaten me up. What does that mean? You ever got a point where you're just so ate up with something? We need to be ate up with God's things, with him personally. Therefore, his gospel, his church, his people, his discipleship, his Bible, his love, his passion, his compassion. Do you see Jesus kind of strolling around kicking rocks, or well, he's a man of passion? Which do you think it is? We don't talk about the moderation of Jesus on the cross. We talk about the passion of Christ on the cross. This is a man of great zeal. That's the kind of man I want to be. That's the kind of person I want for you. Let's be true followers of Jesus. Not in word only, but in deed and in truth. I'm praying for you guys, and I love you.